On this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, I have a question. Are we winning? Are we winning the constitutional, the proverbial gunfight? But first, I really wanted to talk about something else that's been floating around a little bit. I'm going to open, man, if I can find it now. Too many screens. Too many screens running at the same time. All right. I know you guys have probably seen the Texas taqueria. Is that how you say it? I don't know. I've never been to Texas, and I don't really eat Tex-Mex food. Anyway, you've probably seen the self-defense shooting. We're not going to show it on here. We're not going to, have any audio or anything. In fact, I don't even know if there's any audio available. But maybe you've seen the shooting where in a Texas taqueria, this dude comes into this place and robs everybody there. There's probably, 4 or 5 people sitting there eating dinner. And while this dude's going around collecting personal items from these people, one of the patrons ends up pulling his defensive handgun and shooting the guy. Hero of the day, right? Well, I don't know if you've seen the video, and maybe that's as far as the video you've watched. Maybe you haven't seen the video at all. It sounds like a good shoot, right? It sounds like, hey, just good Samaritan saved the day, taking care of business, I guess. But there's a little bit more to the story. And maybe you feel the same way I do. Maybe you don't feel the way I do about this shooting. Maybe you'll be surprised of my opinion. I don't know. So, during this burglary, I guess it would be burglary, right? He used violence. It wasn't a robbery. Or is it the other way around? It's a robbery. Robbery is violence, right? So, like I said, this guy walks in, pointing his gun everywhere, taking personal items from the people they're eating. Patron says, not happening tonight. While he's fidgeting around getting stuff from somebody else, you can see the good guy working his gun out of his what appeared to be an appendix carry holster. You can't really see from the camera angle. As the bad guy walks past him, dude pops out of the booth, shoots 4 shots, pop, 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 pop in the back, which you can shoot bad guys in the back. It really depends. There's some things we'll talk about here in a minute. Shoots him 4 times, shoots him 4 times again. Now, let's finish and then we'll dissect a little bit more. The problem I have with this shoot is the 9th shot that takes place. Once the bad guy's on the ground, he's leaking his hydraulic fluid, if you will, all over the floor. The good Samaritan with a gun walks up to him, 1 more round to the back of the dude's head. That's where I have an issue. That is, in my opinion, where he lost the gunfight. There's more to the story. Maybe you heard, maybe you haven't. It turns out that the robbery suspect, we'll call him a suspect even though we watched him do it on security footage, the gun that he was using to point at people and rob was a toy gun, a plastic gun. It wasn't a real gun. Now, maybe for some of you, you think, man, how dare this dude shoot somebody with and the other guy just had a toy gun. How is that? That shouldn't have been a good shoot. And I can see where you're coming from that. But there's something important we need to understand that takes place in every courtroom, at least it should. And it's been in law since England, right? Since, not just a few weeks ago, England. I'm talking about it's been in common law usage since before we were a country. And it's called the reasonable person test. And the way that works is you have to ask yourself if a hypothetical reasonable person would have reacted in the same manner, and would that make it right or wrong, okay? If you've ever been in a high-stress situation, you kind of go into this fight or flight, right? And you're focused down on things. Sometimes some people get tunnel vision. Some people experience time seems to slow down or whatever. You don't have time to analyze every jot and tittle of what's going on. In my opinion, a reasonable person would have thought, that is a real gun. It's a good shoot. Like I say, I think it is a good shoot up to that point. Whether the dude had a toy gun or not, it doesn't matter. Okay? Under the reasonable person test, like I say, I think he's good. He passes that part of the test. Even up to the 8th shot, I think he's probably, it's a little bit harder to defend in court, but I think he was still okay. But where I think he's going to lose his case, if it ever goes to trial, and we'll talk about that too in a second, is that execution style gunshot to the back of the head. When we talk about defensive shootings, we shoot to stop the threat. Once the threat, let's say the fangs of the snake are gone, that's where our duty or our ability to use defensive force should end. If he would have dropped the gun or whatever, that should have ended right there. This dude was out. And of course, I wasn't there, right? We can only glean what we can from the terrible footage that we see, just from one security camera. Now, and if you're curious about this, you can find it. Most of the videos you're going to find, especially on YouTube, are going to be edited, going to be pixelated out where the gun, when they point the gun or whatever, you're not going to see it, but you're going to get the gist of the video. There are places I'm sure you can find online where there's an unedited version of the video. The reason why I'm not sure if they're going to catch this guy, which I'm sure they're going to end up finding him somehow, is after he delivered that 9th gunshot, he gave the people that had their stuff stolen, gave all their stuff back. He got in his truck and he left. Now that makes me wonder how good of a guy was this? I mean, he might have been fine. He should have stuck around either way. But I almost wonder, maybe this dude isn't as good as what we think he is. Maybe it was just the bad guy was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And this guy thought, well, you know what? I'm not going to die today. And he took care of business. But the moment in my opinion, the 9th gunshot to the back of the head and then leaving the scene, it's going to be very difficult for his attorneys, I think, if they find him, to take him to court and win a case. Excuse me. I was at a girls' basketball game all night. I'm tired. But I don't care. I'm still going to do the show. Which reminds me, we got another problem. This is the last ginger beer. I'm going to have to go find some more. Let's see if this one pops like that last one. Nope, wasn't bad. You're going to have to deal with me drinking my favorite beverage. Oh, that stuff's so good. Bundaberg ginger beer. When I lived in Australia, I got introduced to it, and it has been a part of my life for the last 20 years. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about that real quick, just to keep things in perspective. Both sides of the aisle may use that footage, that scenario, for pro-gun and anti-gun. And honestly, it can go either way. If you are carrying a gun for defense, you need to get good, solid training to understand when the threat is over. When do I use my gun? Maybe in this situation, he didn't even have to use his gun. It almost looked like the guy was leaving the store when the good guy shot him. So you need to think about that. You need to get good, solid training from good, solid instructors, and you need to make sure you have an attorney handy in case you ever do. I mean, there's lots of like USCCA or some of those others where you pay so much a month and it's kind of like an insurance. That's fine. I'm not going to say, hey, you have to use this one or that one. You need to do your own homework. Ignorance is no excuse. And I'm not an attorney. I can't give you legal advice, and don't construe anything I say ever as legal advice, because I'm not an attorney, and I'm especially not your attorney. Okay, next chapter. Are we winning the two-way gunfight, hypothetical gunfight? Seems like, in the past, and I hate making videos where it's like, over and over again, man, here's this law, here's that law, this is an anti-gun law, this is a magazine ban, this is a bump stock ban, this is a pistol brace ban. I really hate making those kind of videos. So I decided, I'm not going to make those videos. Or at least make them as limited as possible. I want to share good news. I don't want to share bad news. So, are we winning the two-way gunfight? Hypothetically, right? There is so much good news out there going on in the gun community. So much good news. The first one that comes to mind, maybe you've heard that the Fifth Circuit down in Texas put a stay or whatever you want to call on the bump stock ban. Okay, I think bump stocks are absolutely stupid. I think they're a waste of money. But that doesn't mean I don't think we should be allowed to buy them. Like I say, they're dumb. They're a waste of ammo. But it's an accessory. They are in common use. I mean, there's, I don't know how many millions of them out there. If you want to spend your money on it, spend your money. I don't care. If you can afford a Black Hawk helicopter, buy a Black Hawk. I don't care. I think we should be able to. So anyway, Fifth Circuit said, hey, you know what? We're not going to deal with that anymore. It doesn't meet the criteria of Bruin. It is a violation. It is, you can't enforce this law. Does that mean we can go out and buy bump stocks right now? Nope, it doesn't, because there's going to be a serious challenge. What's going to happen is it's going to go through the court system again. It's going to end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully the Supreme Court will say, no, you can't. So maybe in a few months we'll be able to buy bump stocks again. Maybe not. I don't know. But what this is doing, stuff like this case at the Fifth Circuit, is it's forcing it to go through the court system again and forcing them to run it through the Bruin decision and see, does it meet this criteria or not. Chevron deference is no longer applicable. Maybe you understood that there was an EPA case that went to the Supreme Court. EPA versus, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyways, the Supreme Court said, hey, the EPA cannot make law and enforce it on these corporations. Laws come from Congress. The EPA can say, hey, this is a problem. You need to draft this bill and make this illegal. But they haven't been. They've given organizations or bureaucracies the ability, or agencies, I guess is a better term, the ability to make law and enforce it, which has never been in design of the Constitution of the United States ever. Okay? Congress is in charge of making laws. So through that EPA case, that's come around to get rid of Chevron deference, which I don't know. You're going to have to Google the terms and stuff. I cannot explain what all that stuff means. I am not an attorney. But what I do know is that instead of going through like a 1 or 2 step process saying yes or no, it has to go through Bruin and traditional use and common use, which they talked about in Heller, right? It all has to go through this whole criteria. And if it doesn't meet the criteria given in Bruin, then it's not applicable. So now that the EPA was neutered under that Supreme Court ruling, that makes ATF the next target. I shouldn't say that because it's not really a target. The ATF could suffer the same consequence. That's a better way to put it. So now what's going to happen is the Fifth Circuit's going to kick this back through, and it's going to have to go through the system again. It's going to have to meet the Bruin decision criteria, and then eventually it will end up in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will say, hey, look, the ATF, you guys, you can't do this anymore. And we're seeing case after case, little by little, there are little baby step wins that are going to add up to a victory in the battle and then the war, possibly. So, anyway, I got a lot of information. I spent a little bit of time tonight looking through Gun Owners of America and the Firearms Policy Coalition. Yeah, I had to think about what I say in there so I don't butcher it. There's tons of great stories and great information on there. One thing that came up yesterday is Justice Alito and Justice Thomas supported the GOA's fight for your rights. Supported it. Now I want you to notice that the NRA has been kind of silent. They've been ghosting us. They haven't been anywhere. Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, and some of these other organizations, including some of your state organizations, have been pushing hard for your rights. We need to support these people, right? This stuff isn't cheap. Anyway, kind of got derailed for a minute. So, Alito and Thomas. In fact, I'll just read the quote. This was from Alito wrote this. I understand the court's denial today to reflect respect for the Second Circuit's procedures in managing its own docket rather than expressing any view on the merits of a case. Applicants should not be deterred by today's order from again seeking relief to the Second Court if the Second Court does not, within a reasonable time, provide an explanation of its stay order to expedite consideration for the appeal. Meaning, the GOA, so Alito said, hey, GOA, don't get discouraged. Keep pushing like you're pushing, because it's going to force all these ridiculous arbitrary laws from people that can't make laws. It's going to force this stuff to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will make decisions. And those decisions, from what we've seen after the last little while, could be very positive. Okay? Don't get discouraged. I was discouraged for the last, pretty much all of last year. Was really frustrated and just tired of the nonstop barrage of gun law after gun law popping up. We're seeing an issue with the brace rule, right? The ATF at any time, now they're saying it's going to happen before SHOT Show, which starts the 17th of January. Before then, ATF is going to pop out a rule on arm braces. I guarantee, folks at GOA and Firearms Policy Coalition, they've already got some stuff drafted up. It's going to hit the court system. Okay? And watching all this stuff happen, like, I'm confident. Of course, I can't say for sure. I'm not there. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. But I'm confident saying that the ATF could be losing a lot of its unbridled and ungiven power. There's a lot of stuff going on. Don't get discouraged. I know that Illinois, they just passed a assault weapons ban, and it's going to take effect soon. If you're in Illinois, don't give up. Don't give up. Be the squeaky wheel. With Republicans now in control of the Senate, barely in control of the Senate, good things could happen. Representative Jim Jordan has already said, hey, we're going to be pushing back. We're going to be pushing back hard. In fact, I think he even sent the ATF a letter this week about, hey, you got some splaining to do. So this good things are happening, and it's all over the place. Texas, they just had the thing about carrying 18 to 20, right? 18 to 21, that stuff is looking really good on the system. There's just so much good happening that we're not maybe we're not seeing. Whoops, I didn't mean to open my emails. Stinking emails. Sorry. Come on now. So I run an Apple, and sometimes, because I wasn't raised on an Apple, sometimes it's frustrating. I love my Apple products. I'm sure some of you hate Apple, which is fine, whatever, but sometimes I just don't. I struggle sometimes using it. All right. It's easy to say, here's another one that just popped up. It's easy to say, like, the New York concealed carry stuff isn't looking good for some of those folks in New York. But we can't give up. We have momentum. We're pushing them into the corner. Oh, something else that popped up in Texas. The Texas, I think it was the Fifth Circuit Court, said, oh, by the way, ATF, interstate commerce law. You have no control over what a state does if something's made in the state and stays in the state. So, you know what? If we have people making suppressors and it's stamped made in Texas, they're not paying a tax stamp, and you can't make them. How awesome is that? That's another reason to move to Texas. Now, Idaho, my state, has tried that in the past, and that law had zero teeth. And I would not trust it, at least the Idaho version. Texas, it might have a little bit more oomph behind it. But here's the thing. Once one state does it, and we saw this with the concealed carry permit stuff, once one state does it, it makes it easier for another state, and then another state. We see the same thing with constitutional carry. We're at 29 states now, I think, with constitutional carry. Started with one state, and then another state. And then those two states helped a third and a fourth, and so on. We're not losing the battle, my friends. We're not. There's so much information that's not getting on the news because they're trying to suppress what's going on in the community. So in Oregon, did you know gun sales surged over the last few months? Oh, and Illinois, once news of this assault weapons ban, they were seeing 10 times the sales. 10 times. There are stores that completely sold out. Not all of those are new gun owners, I get it. But from pandemic and riots to pandemic and so forth, millions of new gun owners. Millions of people, and I know not all of them are going to see the way that I see, or maybe you see it. But I think a huge portion of those brand new gun owners over the last 2 years are going to be pro 2A. Suddenly they understand the point of having a firearm to defend themselves. The problem is, with those millions of new gun owners, is maybe they don't have the friends, maybe they don't have the knowledge, maybe they do not know where to go to fight for those rights. And that's where you come in. Why do you think we say take somebody shooting every episode? Why? Because we need to build the firearms community. That's why. It's not about just building a network of like-minded people. Sure, that can be part of it, and I think that's important. You need to be hitting the ranges. You need to be visible to all these people so they can see how normal owning a gun is. Yes, I know there's some incredibly abnormal gun owners out there. I have met them. I have run ranges where people have come in and I'm thinking, holy shnikes, these people are weird. Am I going to have to deal with something today? I get it. But you know what? There's weird people in every hobby. And the Second Amendment is not a hobby. It is a right. The rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We talked about an article a few months ago in California, right? All these minority women, first-time gun owners, taking class in California. First-time gun owners. Of all streaks of minority, right? You had Hispanics, you had blacks, you had a lesbian couple. These people are understanding. The light bulb is turning on. Are we winning over everybody? No, of course not. And we're not going to. And honestly, we don't want some of these people that are super anti-gun and super awful. We don't want them in the community. That's fine. And honestly, debate and opposition is good. It is good because it forces people to think. And it forces people to defend an argument. But there are so many resources now that we can turn to say, look at this decision. Look at what the courts say about this. And maybe that won't win an argument. Who knows? But what it does do is it gives you confidence, and it gives these new gun owners confidence that they're not weird. That they're not part of some fringe, wacko group of preppers or whatever. We're winning folks. We are winning. It doesn't feel like it. And sometimes it's taken one step forward and two steps back, and then 5 steps forward, and then two more forward. It's not going to be like this huge leap. Are we going to experience the same country that our parents did? Honestly, the same country that I grew up in? I don't know. I hope so. I hope so. But I can tell you this, it's not going to happen if we sit on our butts and do nothing. Be excited. Get out there and let people know how normal it is to own a gun. You should be excited about all these court cases. If you don't believe me about all the amazing stuff that's happening, just get on Gun Owners of America. Look at their website. Look at FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition. Look at the news. There is tons. And while the news is complaining about whatever classified documents or Twitter, whatever, there's a reason why they're not talking about guns. That used to be their bread and butter. It used to be their golden ticket. It's not anymore because they're not winning anymore. Bruin was a game changer. Look it up. Get familiar with Bruin. If you haven't looked up the Heller case, get familiar with Heller. I know that was years ago. Antonin Scalia wrote an amazing support to the Heller case. Like, oh my gosh. Understand what they're saying. There's so much good stuff happening now. And it feels so good for me not to say, here's another anti-gun bill. What are we going to do now? We don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. All right. Let's shift gears a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little story today. Yeah, we're going to share it on here. This isn't gun related, okay? But I found it kind of interesting. This is kind of completely off topic, but in a way, this all kind of weaves together, this whole thing. So I was listening to a podcast today. They were talking about psychopaths. Of all things that I needed to listen to was a show about psychopaths. But it was so interesting. This was a doctor from the UK, did all sorts of studies. And anyway, he shared a story about, and I don't think it was anecdotal. I think this was something that he'd really talked to somebody about. A bunch of these guys, they'd go to a pub, and they were getting rejected all the time by the ladies, right? Just wasn't working out for them. So they decided to make a game of it. They decided, let's see who can get rejected the most. Whoever has the most rejections of the night, the other 3 dudes buy the winner drinks the rest of the night. What do you think happened? This is what I think is intriguing. And maybe you heard the same podcast. I'm not going to share the podcast name, but maybe I will later. I don't know. Maybe you listened to it. What do you think happened? Okay, think about, and maybe ladies, if you're listening, maybe you've been to some of the bars. I don't really go to bars, so I don't really know the situation. And you just get hit on all the time, and you just reject guys left and right. Or maybe you're the dude that gets rejected nonstop. Okay? So, over the course of, I don't know how long, the game became a little bit more challenging for them. They got used to being rejected over and over and over again. Now, the challenge was that as they were used to getting rejected, they realized, so what if I get rejected? It's not a big deal. There's always another girl to talk to. And they gained confidence. See where I'm going with this? It was harder for them to get rejected because they were used to the rejection. They learned how to deal with that rejection, and they learned that tomorrow would come, or another girl would show up, and they could talk to somebody else. And the only way for them to get rejected was to be disgusting or full of malice or, say something completely rude or crude. Okay, how does this relate? We get rejected, right? Life rejects us. Sometimes work rejects us. There's tons of levels of rejection that we experience in life. But that doesn't have to be the end of the story. Rejection is part of growth. The more we get rejected, the more we get ejected or dijected or whatever ejected we want to call it. I guess I better be careful because that sounds almost kind of disgusting in itself. The more we experience rejection, the more resilient, the more confident, and the more able we are to cope with that rejection. And the better we become. Just like some of these gun laws over the past few years. If you feel like life is throwing you curveballs and you're batting, 10, it's okay. It's okay. It makes us better people. It makes us more able to deal with stress, to deal with loss, to deal with frustration, so the next time it comes along, it doesn't destroy and devastate us. Does that make sense now? It's okay to be rejected once in a while. You just need to learn how to deal with it and how to grow from it. That's it. That's it. Life is easy, man. Okay, it's not really easy. It can be really tough. But it's those tough times. Gun laws, right? Same kind of thing. It's those really tough and difficult and frustrating times that let us know we can get through those tough, frustrating times. The sun always comes up in the morning. There's always going to be an end to a storm, no matter how great the storm is. You can get through it, man. You can get through it. And ladies, sorry. Maybe I'm sexist. I feel like I'm always talking to dudes. It's just the way it is. Maybe you didn't listen. Hopefully you listened to last week's show. Okay, let's shift gears, man. Enough with being philosophical for a minute. Did you guys listen to last week's show? You better have. You better have. I have a goal. Okay, this month, I just want 100 new listeners. I think I said 2 months, actually. 100 listeners. Here's the goal, okay? You have to share, or I would like you to share. No, you have to. You have to, or you're going to get grounded. I need you to share this show with one person. One. Each one of you listening. One person. And I'm not saying we only have 50 listeners. That's not what I'm saying. But that would in effect double our listenership. I need you guys to like and share and comment about the show. Give us a review on whatever platform that you're listening to. I'm trying to do more YouTube videos. In fact, I'm recording right now, and I'm going to extract the audio and put it on the podcast on the audio version. Excuse me. I need another drink. Oh, that's so good. Now, once you share it with that one person, I need you to go to the range with somebody that you're going to take. And I need you to show the world how happy you are to be an American. If you're listening in America. If you live in a place where you can shoot guns, if there's a range, even outside of the country, maybe you're in some other country and you have the ability to go to a shooting range, or you have the ability to shoot a rifle or a shotgun, wherever country you might be in, do it. Even if you're anti-gun, step outside of your comfort zone for once. And maybe you'll learn something. If you feel like you're discouraged with all the gun stuff going on, the gun law stuff, don't be. Don't be surprised if you see that there's another mass shooting somewhere. I know that the media is going to go crazy with it and say, oh, look. In fact, I saw a teaser today. Since the beginning of the year, United States has gone through, what, 23 mass shootings. I haven't heard about one of them. And I pay attention. There was that one school shooting that the kid tried to shoot a teacher or something. 6-year-old kid. Devastating, right? Devastating. How that kid got a gun, I don't know. Tom Gresham, if you ever listen to Gun Talk, he actually tweeted something kind of interesting. He said, I wonder if, or how many of these kids that get a hold of these guns have parents with criminal records that maybe got their guns illegal. That would be an interesting research project if you guys want something to do. Don't be surprised if you see some negative, bad gun stuff. Don't be surprised. Because you never know, right? But the media, if it happens or when it happens, the media is just going to pound it even harder because they're trying to get more anti-gun stuff passed. They're trying, and they'll use whatever means necessary. Don't get discouraged. Owning a gun is normal in the United States. Mass shootings are actually not normal in the United States. Per capita, what have we, 300 million people in the United States? Is that right? Yeah, 300 million. No. You're way more likely to die in a car accident. Apparently die of cardiac arrest than you are of a mass shooting. And we're not the only country that has mass shootings. The reason why you don't see this data anymore is because it's been scrubbed. And other countries don't record shootings and data the way the United States does. It's not the same definition across the world. So we're not getting the same data. Have you guys seen what's going on in Mexico the last couple weeks? I would consider that civil unrest, and I mean, every day there was a mass shooting. The FBI says a mass shooting is when there's 4 or more people. 4 or more people. I guess you could almost say that at a gun range, there's a mass shooting every day. Don't believe all what you hear. Yes, shootings are devastating. It's terrible. Bad people do bad things no matter what. If you remember, a few years ago, there was a couple of airplanes that were flown into some buildings and 3,000 people died. Bad people do bad things. I'm old enough to remember the Oklahoma City bombing. Fertilizer, diesel fluid, and something else, right? It was like 135 people. Bad people do bad things. I just read about this. In the 20s, I think, the first mass incident at a school, I want to say it was in the 20s, was a bomb. It wasn't a gun. In fact, we didn't really have an issue with mass shootings until after Columbine. All those worthless, murderous kids got so much media attention. We had copycat issues. Yeah, we have a massive mental health problem in the United States. That's a whole nother issue. That's like 10 other shows that I'm not qualified to talk about. Guns are not the issue. Violence comes from an individual's desire to commit violence. How do you combat violence? Equal force might be the best deterrent. Something to think about. I am not advocating just going around shooting people. Okay? That is not how we roll around here. It's not. But always being ready and not being a victim are 2 huge components. You can take that for what it's worth. We're just going to go ahead and end the show right there. Friends, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I have a goal like I said, I want to get 1,000 listeners by the end of the year. If I can hit 100 new listeners every month, that helps a bunch. Okay? Please, Like, share, comment. Even if you hate me, I don't care. Comment. I'm not scared of somebody saying something about me. Look at this face. I've been made fun of my whole life. I ain't scared. Appreciate you guys for listening. Don't give up on the fight. Like I said, jump on Gun Owners of America or Firearms Policy Coalition. I don't get paid for saying that. Maybe they don't want me endorsing them. Too bad. Check out the wins we're having every day. Little wins, man. Little wins. We're doing just fine. It could be better. Could be better, sure. But it's not bad. Don't be down. 2023 is going to be an epic year for firearms owners. I have a sneaking hunch about that. Could be awesome. Nonetheless, get some training, get some education. Take a medic class, for heaven's sakes. Learn how to stop the bleed. Do that. Take classes this year. Set some goals. We talked about goals last week. Set some goals. Attain those goals. Hit the gym. It's good for you. That's why I look terrible, because I haven't been hitting the gym. Instead, I've been hitting the ginger beer. All right, friends. Be safe. Take somebody shooting. And be good stewards of the Second Amendment. See you guys.